Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here and investing your time in improving your English and yourself. You are not bad at English, you are just learning it the wrong way, so your brain is refusing to remember. You may have sat down and studied a long list of vocabulary, read it again and again, but only a few days later you forgot almost all of it. You started to think you were not talented at languages, but the real problem is not your memory, it is the way you put information into your brain. The human brain is not designed to remember random data with no meaning. It only keeps what has images, emotions, context, and repetition at the right time. So if you are trying to learn vocabulary by copying lists and memorizing them, you are working against how your brain functions. And when you go against a natural mechanism, forgetting is not your fault, it is an inevitable result. You may have learned many words but still could not form a sentence when you needed to speak, and that feeling made you think you had no language talent. In fact, the problem is not your memory, but how you feed data into your brain. When you learn a word alone, it is like a key with no label for its lock, so when you need it, you hold a whole bunch but cannot open anything. The brain remembers scenes, not lists, so a word only truly lives when it sits inside a sentence with a situation. You might forget the meaning of the word issue, but if you once heard the sentence, "What's the issue?" you remember it immediately when you need to ask someone what is wrong. That is because the brain does not store the word issue by itself. It stores the tone, the context, and the feeling when the sentence was used. Learning words in chunks is like learning a movement instead of learning each step separately. The body remembers motion faster than theory. Fluent speakers are not the ones who know the most words, but the ones who have heard and repeated the most familiar phrases. When you change from learning words to learning usage, you stop forcing yourself to remember and start naturally getting used to them. And then you realize what once seemed like a secret, that speaking a language does not begin with vocabulary, but with context. But what really decides your speed of progress lies in the part you cannot see. It is the amount of language you have heard and read before trying to say anything. When your ears are not used to the sounds and your eyes are not used to the structures, your mouth can only assemble separate words like building a toy with missing pieces. On the other hand, when you hear enough correct sentences, your brain starts recording both rhythm and word order without you noticing. That is why some people speak fluently even if they studied little grammar, simply because they were exposed long enough to form reflexes. It's like listening to a song many times and then singing the chorus automatically, even though you never tried to memorize the lyrics. Language works quietly in the same way. It accumulates first and appears later. When you understand this mechanism, you stop rushing to speak and begin patiently building the foundation before expecting results. The key point lies in how you put information into your head, not in how many times you repeat it. When a word appears without any image or emotion attached, the brain treats it like noise and ignores it quickly. But once you connect it to a specific scene, memory suddenly has somewhere to hold on and stays longer. For example, someone may remember the word slippery forever just because they once imagined slipping on a banana peel in a supermarket and falling in front of everyone. That image is funny and slightly embarrassing, and that emotion makes the word stick firmly in the mind. The brain prefers stories to definitions because stories create clear paths to return to later. When you learn through association, you stop trying to hold words in your mind and let images hold them for you. And when you need them, what appears is not the translation, but the whole familiar scene that brings the word with it. What determines how long you remember something actually lies in the distance between each time you meet it again. When a new word appears once and disappears, the brain treats it like a stranger passing by and does not keep it. But if it comes back right when you are about to forget it, the brain understands it's important and moves it into long-term storage. This feels like meeting the same person many times at different moments, and naturally you remember their face and name without trying. Some people memorize many words in one session but forget everything days later, not because they are bad, but because the memory was never reinforced. Reviewing in cycles is like reminding the brain that this information is still needed, so it should not delete it. Each review spaced at the right interval makes the trace in memory a little stronger. And when you realize you remember without trying, that's when learning has truly moved from temporary to lasting. What keeps you learning the longest is not discipline, but enjoyment when you interact with the language. When the content you watch or listen to matches your taste, your brain no longer sees it as a task, but as entertainment, so it absorbs it more easily. A movie lover can remember whole lines after rewatching a favorite scene a few times, even though memorizing vocabulary lists never worked before. The reason is simple. Emotion opens the brain instead of making it resist. When you read what you are curious about or listen to what you love, new words flow into your mind without force. Gradually, your vocabulary grows and you don't even feel like you are studying. And when you look back, you realize what helped you go far was not pushing yourself, but choosing the way that made you want to continue. The key detail is that you must see yourself moving forward instead of only feeling that you are trying. When learning has no clear measurement, the brain thinks all effort is vague and easily gives up halfway. But once you set a specific number, such as learning 20 words in a week, every time you finish, you see real proof of progress. That feeling is like watching a clock hand move step by step instead of standing still. The brain likes measurable things because it knows the reward is getting closer. When the goal is clear, motivation no longer needs to be forced. It appears on its own. And when you look at the completed list, you realize what kept you going was not strong willpower, but the feeling that you were winning small steps. What truly makes vocabulary stay is not the moment you study it, but the moment you are forced to use it. A new word that you only see once is like a stranger passing through your life and disappearing. When you try to say it in a chat sentence or write it in a caption, the brain instantly recognizes it as something worth keeping. At first, it may feel awkward, like wearing a new shirt you're not used to, but that awkwardness is actually the signal that memory has switched to storage mode. Experienced learners realize that a word they have used once is rarely forgotten. The brain doesn't remember what you see, it remembers what you use. And when you say a smooth sentence with a word that once felt difficult, you understand why practice is the step that makes learning real. And this is where the whole picture finally comes together. Learning vocabulary fast does not come from a magic trick, but from three things working together: the right strategy, steady habits, and an environment where English appears every day. Without strategy, you study a lot but stay confused. Without discipline, you understand the method but quit halfway. Without environment, what you learn has nowhere to live and slowly disappears. It's like growing a plant. Good seeds alone are not enough. You also need someone to care for them and light for them to grow. When all three exist at the same time, progress happens almost naturally instead of force. And at that point, you realize that learning speed depends on whether your memory is good or bad, but on whether you have placed yourself inside the right system. If you find this video interesting and helpful, please give me a like and subscribe.